Jae-sung worked as a janitor on a big space station far away from Earth. The space station was home to many different kinds of aliens from all over the galaxy. Jae-sung's job was to keep the station clean and tidy. One day, while cleaning a storage room that hadn't been used in a long time, Jae-sung found a strange old box hidden in a corner. The box looked very old and was covered in strange symbols that Jae-sung had never seen before. Curious, Jae-sung opened the box. Inside, he found a small, shiny object that looked like it was made of metal and glass. As soon as Jae-sung picked up the object, it started to glow with a soft, blue light. Jae-sung was surprised by the glowing object. He had never seen anything like it before. He wondered what it was and where it had come from. As Jae-sung held the glowing object in his hand, he suddenly felt a strange energy flowing through his body. It was a warm, tingling sensation that made him feel strong and powerful. At the same time, the object started to make a low humming sound. The sound grew louder and louder until it filled the whole storage room. Jae-sung didn't know what was happening, but he knew that the object was special. He decided to keep it hidden and not tell anyone about it, not even his best friend Ma-young, who also worked on the station as a scientist. Little did Jae-sung know that the object he had found was a very old and powerful artifact. It had been made by ancient humans long ago and had the power to change Jae-sung's life forever. As Jae-sung left the storage room with the artifact hidden in his pocket, he had no idea that he had just started a chain of events that would lead to a big adventure and change the future of humans and aliens alike on the space station and beyond. The artifact continued to glow and hum softly as Jae-sung went back to his cleaning duties, unaware that its energy signal had already been noticed by someone else on the station, someone who would cause big trouble for Jae-sung very soon. The energy signal emitted by the artifact did not go unnoticed by those in charge of the space station. A group of powerful aliens who ruled over the station's inhabitants soon discovered that Jae-sung had activated the ancient device. These alien overseers were known for their cruelty and their belief that they were superior to all other forms of life, especially humans. When they learned that a mere human janitor had stumbled upon something so potentially significant, they were quick to summon Jae-sung for questioning. Jae-sung found himself hauled before the intimidating alien leaders in a grand chamber at the heart of the station. The aliens towered over Jae-sung and glared down at him with disdain. They demanded that he hand over the artifact immediately. When Jae-sung hesitated, the aliens grew angry. They insulted and demeaned him, mocking his lowly position and his entire species. "You insignificant creature," one of them sneered. "You have no idea what you've gotten yourself into. Give us the artifact now, and we may spare you from the severest of punishments." But something about the aliens' arrogance and their casual cruelty toward him stirred a defiance in Jae-sung that he had never known before. A lifetime of being treated as inferior, of being stepped on and pushed aside by these alien bullies, bubbled to the surface. As the aliens continued to hurl insults at him, calling him a worthless primitive and threatening him with all manner of terrible fates if he did not comply, Jae-sung felt the artifact hidden inside his pocket begin to pulse with energy, as if reacting to his emotions. A strange sensation came over him then, starting as a tingle at the back of his head that rapidly spread throughout his entire body. It was as if liquid fire was coursing through his veins. Jae-sung gasped at the sudden influx of power, his eyes going wide as sparks of literal electricity crackled over his skin. The aliens fell silent, their expressions shifting from contempt to shock as they witnessed the transformation taking place before them. Jae-sung rose to his feet, no longer cowering, his bearing proud and strong as he faced down his tormentors with a steady, fearless gaze. In that moment, without understanding how, Jae-sung knew that everything had changed. The artifact had awoken something inside him, something ancient and mighty that would no longer tolerate such treatment. And the aliens, for perhaps the first time in their lives, began to feel the stirrings of an unfamiliar emotion as they looked upon this human standing tall before them. fear. As Jae-sung stood before the alien leaders, the artifact's power continued to grow within him. He could feel an ancient energy coursing through his veins, filling him with a strength and confidence he had never known before. The aliens, who had once seemed so intimidating, now appeared small and insignificant in the face of this newfound power. They took a step back, their eyes wide with a mix of shock and fear as they realized that the human before them was no longer the meek, subservient creature they had always believed him to be. In that moment, a flood of knowledge poured into Jae-sung's mind. He saw visions of the artifact's true nature and purpose, and he understood at last the power that had been awakened within him. The artifact, he now knew, was a key to unlocking the dormant potential of the human species, a potential that had been forgotten and suppressed over countless generations of alien rule. It was a remnant of a time when humans had been the masters of their own destiny, possessed of a strength and wisdom that had allowed them to stand tall among the stars. And now, that same strength and wisdom flowed through Jae-sung, granting him abilities that he had never dreamed possible. He could feel the very fabric of the universe bending to his will, responding to his thoughts and emotions like an extension of his own being. The aliens, sensing the shift in the balance of power, began to back away in earnest. They barked orders at their subordinates to seize Jae-sung, to take the artifact from him by force. But it was too late. With a simple gesture, Jae-sung sent them flying backwards, their bodies slamming into the walls of the chamber with bone-crushing force. As he stood over his former tormentors, Jae-sung felt a sense of grim satisfaction. For too long, he and his fellow humans had suffered under the yoke of alien oppression, treated as little more than slaves and playthings by their cruel overseers. But no more. With the power of the artifact at his command, Jae-sung vowed to set his people free. He would teach them to stand up for themselves, to reclaim their rightful place as equals among the countless species of the galaxy. And he would start by tearing down the very foundations of the alien hierarchy that had held them down for so long. The time of human subservience was over. The time of human ascendance had begun. And Jae-sung, the once lowly janitor, would be the one to lead his species into a new and glorious future, whether the aliens liked it or not. In the aftermath of Jae-sung's confrontation with the alien leaders, news of his newfound powers began to spread throughout the space station. Whispers of a human with the ability to stand up to the oppressive overseers quickly turned into excited chatter, and before long, Jae-sung found himself at the center of a growing storm of attention and speculation. Among those most intrigued by these developments was Mi-young, Jae-sung's childhood friend and a brilliant scientist in her own right. Upon hearing the rumors of Jae-sung's transformation, she immediately set out to find him, driven by a burning curiosity and a deep concern for her old friend's well-being. When Mi-young finally tracked Jae-sung down in a secluded corner of the station, she found him grappling with the weight of his new reality. The artifact had granted him incredible power, but it had also burdened him with an immense responsibility, one that he wasn't sure he was ready to shoulder. But Mi-young, ever the rational and pragmatic one, was quick to offer her support and guidance. With her keen scientific mind, she began to study the artifact and its effects on Jae-sung, working tirelessly to unravel the mysteries of its ancient technology. As Mi-young delved deeper into her research, she made a startling discovery. The artifact, it seemed, was not just a tool for unlocking human potential. It was a key to a much larger and more complex puzzle. Its energy signature matched that of a series of long-forgotten ruins scattered across the galaxy, each one rumored to hold a piece of the same ancient power that now resided within Jae-sung. Excited by the prospect of uncovering the full truth behind the artifact and its creators, Mi-young urged Jae-sung to embrace his role as the bearer of this cosmic legacy. With her help, she argued, he could learn to master his abilities and use them to unravel the secrets of the past, secrets that could hold the key to humanity's future. But even as Mi-young's words filled Jae-sung with a sense of purpose and determination, he couldn't shake the feeling of unease that had been growing within him ever since he first touched the artifact. For all the power it granted him, there was something about the ancient device that felt dangerous, even unstable, as if it were a force that could just as easily destroy him as it could uplift him. As Jae-sung struggled to come to terms with his new reality, he knew that he would have to rely on Ma-young's brilliance and support more than ever before. Together, they would have to navigate the challenges and dangers that lay ahead, all while unraveling the riddles of the past and forging a new path for humanity's future. The journey would be long and perilous, but with the power of the artifact and the strength of their bond, Jae-sung and Ma-young were ready to face whatever the universe had in store for them. As Jae-sung and Ma-young worked to unravel the mysteries of the artifact, word of Jae-sung's extraordinary abilities continued to spread throughout the space station's human population. With each passing day, more and more people sought him out, drawn by the promise of a power that could finally free them from the shackles of alien oppression. At first, Jae-sung was hesitant to embrace his newfound role as a leader and symbol of resistance. He had never asked for this responsibility, and the weight of his people's hopes and dreams felt like an almost unbearable burden. But as he listened to their stories of suffering and injustice, he began to understand that he could no longer stand idly by, while his fellow humans languished under the yoke of their cruel overseers. With Ma-young's support and guidance, Jae-sung slowly began to gather his followers into a cohesive movement. He taught them to harness the latent potential within themselves, to tap into the same ancient power that flowed through his own veins. Under his tutelage, they grew stronger and more confident, their once cowed spirits now burning with the fire of righteous rebellion. As the movement grew, the alien authorities took notice. They saw the growing unrest among their human subjects as a threat to their dominion, and they moved quickly to quash any signs of resistance. But Jae-sung and his followers would not be cowed. Armed with the power of the artifact and the strength of their convictions, they met their oppressors head-on, engaging in a series of daring raids and sabotage missions that struck at the very heart of the alien power structure. With each victory, Jae-sung's legend grew. To the humans of the space station, he was a savior, a champion of their cause who had risen from the ranks of the downtrodden to lead them to a brighter future. But to the aliens, he was a dangerous insurgent, a threat to their very way of life that had to be eliminated at all costs. As the conflict escalated, Jae-sung found himself grappling with the weight of leadership and the consequences of his actions. Every decision he made carried life and death stakes, not just for himself, but for the entire human population of the station. And with each passing day, the specter of all-out war loomed ever closer, threatening to engulf them all in a conflagration that could leave nothing but ashes in its wake. But even in his darkest moments, Jae-sung drew strength from the unwavering support of Ma-young and the courage of his fellow rebels. Together, they had started something that could no longer be stopped. A revolution that would either lead their people to a new dawn of freedom and self-determination, or consign them to an eternity of servitude and despair. The future of the human race rested on their shoulders, and they would not rest until their world was finally their own once more. As Jae-sung's rebellion continued to grow in strength and boldness, the alien authorities realized that they were facing a threat unlike any they had encountered before. No longer content to rely on their usual tactics of intimidation and brute force, they began to devise new strategies to crush the human resistance once and for all. Their first move was to tighten their grip on the space station's resources and infrastructure. They cut off access to vital supplies, hoping to starve the rebels into submission. They also increased surveillance and security measures, deploying armies of robotic enforcers to patrol the station's corridors and root out any signs of dissent. But Jae-sung and his followers would not be so easily cowed. With Ma-young's help, they developed new technologies and tactics of their own, finding ways to circumvent the aliens' blockades and strike at their most vulnerable points. They raided supply caches, sabotaged key systems, and staged daring rescue missions to free their imprisoned comrades. As the conflict escalated, the station became a battleground, with fierce skirmishes erupting in every sector. The aliens responded with ever greater force, unleashing devastating weapons and brutal crackdowns that left entire sections of the station in ruins. But even in the face of such overwhelming odds, Jae-sung's rebels refused to back down. Through it all, Jae-sung himself remained a beacon of hope and inspiration to his followers. With the power of the artifact flowing through him, he seemed all but invincible, able to perform feats of strength and agility that defied belief. In battle, he was a force of nature, wielding energy blasts and force fields with a mastery that left his enemies reeling. But even Jae-sung had his limits. As the war dragged on, the constant strain of using his powers began to take a toll on both his body and his mind. He grew increasingly volatile and unpredictable, prone to sudden outbursts of rage and despair. Some even began to whisper that the artifact was changing him, twisting his very nature into something dark and dangerous. Through it all, Ma Young remained by Jae-sung's side, the one constant in a world gone mad. She worked tirelessly to help him master his abilities and keep his inner demons at bay. She was his rock, his anchor, the one person who could pull him back from the brink when all seemed lost. As the final battle loomed on the horizon, Jae-sung knew that everything he had fought for, everything he held dear, hung in the balance. With Ma Young and his loyal followers by his side, he prepared to make his last stand against the alien tyrants who had oppressed his people for so long. Win or lose, he knew that the future of humanity would be decided in the fires of this conflict, and he would not rest until his world was finally free. As the final battle for control of the space station approached, Jae-sung threw himself into preparation with a determined fervor. He spent long hours training with his powers, pushing himself to the very limits of his endurance as he sought to master every aspect of the artifact's abilities. At the same time, he worked closely with Ma Young and his other lieutenants to finalize their battle plans and coordinate their forces for the decisive confrontation ahead. Despite the exhaustion and the ever-present specter of danger, Jae-sung found himself feeling strangely exhilarated. For the first time in his life, he had a true sense of purpose, a cause that he believed in with every fiber of his being. The thought of finally bringing an end to the aliens' tyrannical rule and securing a future of freedom for his people filled him with a fierce, unbridled joy. When the day of the battle finally arrived, Jae-sung and his rebel army were ready. They struck hard and fast, launching a series of coordinated assaults on key alien strongholds across the station. Jae-sung himself led the charge, wielding the full might of the artifact's power as he carved a path of destruction through the enemy ranks. The aliens fought back with all the savagery and desperation of a cornered beast. They unleashed devastating weapons and deployed wave after wave of heavily armed troops, determined to crush the human uprising at any cost. The battle raged across every level of the station, turning corridors and chambers into blood-soaked war zones. Through it all, Jae-sung remained a beacon of hope and inspiration to his followers. With Ma Young by his side, he performed feats of bravery and power that defied belief, shattering enemy lines and turning the tide of battle in favor of the human rebels. Even as the artifact's power threatened to consume him, he held fast to his humanity, drawing strength from the unbreakable bond he shared with his comrades. As the fighting reached its climax, Jae-sung found himself face to face with the alien leader who had tormented him and his people for so long. In a final, cataclysmic duel, they clashed with all the fury and hatred of generations of oppression and resistance. The very fabric of reality seemed to warp and twist around them as they poured every ounce of their strength and will into the fight. In the end, it was Jae-sung who emerged victorious. With a final, devastating blow, he struck down the alien tyrant, sending a shockwave of energy rippling through the station. As the last of the enemy forces fell, a great cheer went up from the human rebels. They had won. Against all odds, they had overthrown their oppressors and claimed their rightful place as masters of their own destiny. But even as they celebrated their triumph, Jae-sung knew that their struggles were far from over. The station lay in ruins, its people battered and bleeding from the long years of conflict. A new future beckoned, one filled with both hope and uncertainty. It would fall to Jae-sung and his allies to build a new society from the ashes of the old, to forge a path forward for all of humanity. The road ahead would be long and hard, but with the strength of their conviction and the power of the artifact, they would not falter. A new dawn was rising, and they would meet it head-on, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. In the aftermath of the Great Battle, Jae-sung found himself thrust into a new role as the de facto leader of the liberated space station. It was a position he had never sought, but one that he knew he could not refuse. The people looked to him now for guidance and direction as they struggled to rebuild their shattered world. The challenges they faced were immense. The station's infrastructure had been badly damaged in the fighting, and many areas were still dangerous or uninhabitable. Food and medical supplies were scarce, and the threat of disease and starvation loomed over the survivors. There were also deep wounds to be healed, both physical and emotional, as the people grappled with the trauma of the long years of oppression and war. But Jae-sung met these challenges head-on, drawing strength from the unwavering support of Maidong and his closest allies. Together, they worked tirelessly to restore order and stability to the station, organizing work crews to repair the damage and establishing a fair system for distributing resources. They also reached out to other human settlements scattered across the galaxy, seeking to build alliances and share knowledge and resources. As the weeks and months passed, the station slowly began to heal. Under Jae-sung's leadership, the people came together as never before, united by a shared sense of purpose and a determination to build a better future for themselves and their children. New technologies were developed, drawing on the knowledge and skills of both humans and the few friendly alien species who had sided with them in the war. The station became a hub of innovation and learning, a beacon of hope for all those who still labored under the yoke of alien oppression. But even as they celebrated their successes, Jae-sung knew that their work was far from finished. The artifact that had given him his power was still a mystery, its true origins and purpose unknown. And beyond the confines of the station, the galaxy was still a dangerous and uncertain place, with many alien species still hostile to the idea of human freedom and self-determination. Jae-sung knew that he would have to continue to lead his people in the struggles to come, to forge new alliances and face new challenges as they sought to build a lasting peace and prosperity for all of humanity. But he also knew that he would not have to face those challenges alone. With Maidong by his side, and with the strength and courage of his people behind him, he was ready to embrace his destiny as the champion of human freedom and the guardian of a new era for his species. As he looked out over the bustling streets and shining towers of the reborn station, Jae-sung felt a sense of pride and purpose that he had never known before. He had started this journey as a simple janitor, but he had become so much more. He was a leader, a warrior, a visionary. And with the power of the artifact and the will of his people, he knew that there was no limit to what they could achieve. The future was theirs to shape, and they would face it together, united and unafraid.